Hey, this is Adam Torres, and I'm here to tell you that it has never been easier to start your very own podcast. At Mission Matters, our goal is to amplify stories that matter. That means we want to help you start your podcast because your story matters. We can do this in 3 different ways. 1, join our podcast school and take a free or paid course. 2, visit our resources page where we've already figured out what you need, such as where to host your podcast. Or 3, heck, we can even do everything for you through our podcast agency, including editing for cheaper than you can do in-house. Oh, and no contracts, service is month to month. Get started by heading over to missionmatters.com and click on Start a Podcast. All right, now let's get into the show. Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Business Podcast, your source for all things business. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Anthony Hollingsworth on the line. He's a strategist over at Laundry Service, and he's also a creator of 1-888-LIMAS1. Anthony, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Oh, man, Anthony. So I'm excited to get into today's topic. So we're going to talk about your creation over here, 1-888-LIMAS1, and we're going to talk about the inspiration behind that and, and what you're doing exactly. I'm a fan of it. I saw your work on Instagram, and we're going to get into that. Before we do, let's go a little bit further into your background. So how did you really get started in your career and kind of on this path?
Yeah, totally. So as you mentioned, I'm a strategist working at Laundry Service, and what that means is I build brands and digital strategies for the NBA G League, Jordan brand, Nike, day in and day out. The way that I kind of got to that is I have a background in journalism. I was a writer and editor for what is now owned by CBS called Scout, and I just started out writing stories, producing content, and what I found out was the best kind of content that was being made was actually being made by brands. And it's not because it was journalistically integral or correct or factually, but it was interesting. It really grabbed people's eyes and attention. So I actually worked at Dannon, the Gilbert Company, for a little bit, managing all their digital brand creative. And then I transitioned into being a producer for a alphabet-backed startup, creating content around artists, specifically around music. And then I made my way into the world of advertising proper. And I've been here for the last couple of years, just, doing the thing, kicking around and trying to make something cool, unique for people around me.
Man, I think it's a great story, and you are making something cool and unique. Let's just dive right into the brand and how I discovered you. Or I should say you discovered me. I don't know how it happened, but so I the old Instagram, right? So we're tagged in a photo, and one of our previous guests nominated one of our books out there, and I started going down that rabbit hole Instagram like we all do at some point, and I looked at the brand, I looked at what you're doing, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So first off, I want to make sure that I represent your creation right, so I want it in your words. What was the inspiration behind 1-888-LIMAS1 and why you created it?
Of course, and shout out Jesse. He's the one who recommended your book, but to dive a little bit, behind the curtain was essentially I was walking around, I'm in Harlem, I was walking around my neighborhood, and I was just thinking, what can I do to support those people who have supported us? And us as in Black people. I'm Black, born and raised, background, extremely Black, and it's, we're in a time of civil unrest, and quite frankly, Latino brothers and sisters have been stepping up to the plate to support Black people around Black Lives Matter in our protests. And I was just thinking, from this dismantling of the Dreamers Act to ICE sweeps to everything in between, the Latino population in America has really been under attack the last couple of years. How do I support them in the way that they supported us? And I kind of walked up on this payphone in Harlem. It's on 124th. And I was just like, man, who uses payphones anymore? And I was just like, it'd be really interesting if you can actually learn and get information daily by a payphone. And I knew something was coming up, and I had that feeling of representing and actually talking about something that's interesting for the, Hispanic and Latino community. And I was just like, this might make sense. So realizing that Latino Heritage Month was really fast approaching, I just wanted to, place myself in a position as a Black man to really support that community and learn from that community, but also give them a voice. Just knowing that they've been like steadfast allies, but also there's a general lack of information and knowledge around Latino culture, which really stems from this Eurocentric viewpoint of the world that, limits groundwork of knowledge and acceptance by all people. And knowing that, many people turn to literature in that way, right? So you might pick up a book and say, like, how can I be a better ally? How can I learn more? Whether it's co-authoring one of your books or picking up someone else's books, it's all about that place of knowledge and starting. And what I found was people aren't really having those conversations because they're joining in at different points. And they realize, Latino culture, just like any other culture, is vast and varied. So you really don't know where to start. And just to peel back the layer a little bit on that too, doing and digging research, I found that even at the high school level, this heritage is not being talked about. This, Latino authors are not actually given the breathing room, and then Latino students aren't really given the opportunity to learn about their background. And in turn, people like me, people who are Black, for instance, can't learn about those things because they're not necessarily in the academic setting. So I wanted to kind of turn it on its head and make this about active activism, right? Active allyship, in the sense that each day you have to call in and you have to get a new book recommendation by a Latino person from a Latino author. And that way you're actively going down the route of learning something new and taking it on yourself to really push yourself and your knowledge further than ever before.
Yeah, I really love the interactiveness of it. So talk a little bit more about, how people use it. Like they call the phone. I mean, give a little bit more there, because I don't want to assume that everybody caught the project, because the project, and I want them, I know I follow it, but what's the handle? I want to make sure I got that right for the audience, because I want them to go check it out so they can visually see this at the same time.
Yeah, so you dial a number, 1-888-LIMAS1, and essentially each day, you get a new book recommendation from a person of Latino heritage recommending a book from a Latino author. And then, deeper down, that actually appears on Instagram as well. So we have two social assets, a story asset, then feed asset. Talks a little bit about the book in the feed, and then it tells why that person cares about that book. How does it relate? How is it pushing the culture forward? Or what does it mean to them specifically as it relates to being a Latino person? And then from there, we push it on our website as well, right? So the two places you can hear the audio is if you dial in that day, or you go to our website where we have all the audio from the previous days on there. And I think the beauty of this project as a whole is, after you dial in, it's essentially a voicemail, and you hear the recording of the voicemail, and then you get, the beep at the end. And what we found is people are actually talking about books that they recommend or how this book made them feel. And a couple times people are just like, hey, they reach out to me directly, like, I didn't even know that you can hear this. And I was just like, yeah, I'm not putting it out for public consumption, but they're bearing their souls and talking about how important these books are for them. And I think that's just so powerful.
I think it's amazing. I think it's an amazing project. And overall, think about how content's distributed. So I mean, just in being in publishing and working with a lot of people, I mean, I see, all different levels and all different races, by the way. So I've worked with many African-American publishers. I mean, I'm from Detroit originally. So in terms of my connection to the African-American community, I mean, I grew up in it. And when I see some of the things that are happening there, specifically with publishing and with books and other things, I'm like, man, the consumer market, in my opinion, and it makes sense. I mean, if you think about it, they don't even know this kind of content's available. It doesn't make it past. When I think about some of the publishers that I know in Detroit, they don't have these huge budgets to get these works out to target and to do the spending. They're not Penguin Books. Not picking on Penguin, by the way. I just mean they're not Random House Publishing. They're not Time. They're not. So it's if you're not one of those, then you can't fight the algorithms on Amazon or otherwise. What do you do? And so one of the reasons I was so excited to have you on here is because I'm like, man, like what you're doing is something that other people can do too. I mean, it's awesome. It's like, and it's an engagement thing. So, you know, it doesn't have to be just Latino books. I mean, for your project, I mean, it's very specific what you're doing. I hope that it expands and that you continue down this path. No pressure, by the way. I just mean in general. I think it's a great thing you're doing. And I know it's not easy and I know it takes time. So no pressure there, but I'm also hoping to inspire other people that maybe have never really considered what it looks like to help people tell a story like this. And, you know, you want representation. A good way to do it is to contribute. Like nobody's making you do this. You decided to go out this and you had this urge, you had this calling, you went out and did it, and now look, boom, it just starts growing. Awesome.
And exactly. I think you hit a couple things on the head, but also illuminated something I can't believe I failed to mention. The 31 book recommendations that we actually received are being purchased from Latino-owned bookstores within New York City. And then we are actually donating it to a all-girls charter high school in Brooklyn. That is something that, you know, to the point of continuing on, we want to inspire the youth, right? Like, we just don't want this to end here for this month. Like, this is something that needs to go on forever, and that means supporting local businesses, but also supporting local education to show them that there's actual opportunity for you to do things like this too.
Oh my gosh, that's absolutely amazing. I didn't know that part. Well, we're definitely going to donate some books to you and your cause. I don't know. I must have missed that part of it somehow. But that's awesome. No, we'll definitely be sending some. We'll get on the line after this, and we'll definitely be donating some books to the cause for sure. Because that's the whole point. We want to get these things out there. So that's awesome. So Anthony, I can talk to you about this all day long, but we are about out of time for this one. So that being said, if somebody wants to follow you, follow your work, follow the project, I mean, what's the best way for them to engage overall?
Yeah, you can actually go to www.lee-mas.com and catch all the book recommendations over the last couple of days. But you can also dial into the number, right? 1-888-LEMAS1, or you can head to our social, 888-LEE_MAS on Instagram. And if you want to catch up with me and what I'm doing, I'm A.E. Hollingsworth on all social platforms.
Fantastic. Well, Anthony, really appreciate you coming on the show today, sharing more about your passion for your creation and all the great work that you're doing. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review on the Apple iTunes Store. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Business, definitely give us a subscribe there, but also leave us some comments on the video. Love to know what kind of projects and things that you're working on. And Anthony, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you, Adam.